on various places. Cool. And we'll see how many people jump in. Okay, Facebook. And video. It's happening now.
Another reason, Mathilde, that I'm really happy you're on it is because I think a lot of podcasts, or, I find the video chats and stuff are usually quite US centric with their audience as well. And it's like, okay, we need to kind of broaden that out a little bit and link more people together. And because I think I wouldn't say there's many people, in the US or even in the UK who know Tric Trac.
Probably not.
But yet the production level of what you guys are doing is like incredible. So I think it'd be kind of nice to at least put you on more people's radar as well.
We're actually going to be the main, the official French-speaking media for Spiel Digital this year. Yes. So I think maybe, but also, I mean, it does make sense that a non-French-speaking audience wouldn't really know others. I mean, we don't produce English-speaking content at the moment. So.
Yeah. I know, but it's more, I think sometimes people think, what, the French play games? That it's only, but you know what I mean?
This is like the biggest market in the world now. Come on.
But you know what I mean? Where people live in their bubble, and if they're just used to seeing content coming, they're only ever seeing English language content. So they only think of it from that perspective. So actually, I don't think how I can turn that into a question, actually, about the kind of French audience for games.
Ryan.
Cool.
Hey.
All right. Introductions. Rory, you've met Ryan already.
Yes.
Ages ago. Ryan, this is Mathilde from Tric Trac, France's leading games journalism extravaganza.
Hello.
Mathilde, Ryan is from the Cardboard Republic. He's a friend of mine.
Cool. Hi, Ryan. How are you doing?
Yeah, with no nepotism here, Michael.
No. Ryan runs Cardboard Republic, which is a fantastic site that focuses on written reviews. Which I appreciate.
We still exist.
You still exist.
I'm just trying to figure out where it is.
Okay, so I'll put it on the Hub Games Twitter. We are live right now. Okay, cool. It's top of the hour, and we've got Joss is already there. Okay, which doesn't surprise me at all. So Ryan, Mathilde, just as a heads up, I have access to the comments that pop up on the right-hand side, just so you know. So when people like Joss say hello, I can make this happen, and we get little sort of things like that. So if questions pop up, we'll throw them in there. Ryan, you're only with us for a wee bit because you've got a presser at the top of the hour, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
You'll have to suffer until then.
Or us. Sad face. All right, let's kick off this thing. It is Wednesday. It's 7 o'clock in the UK. It's 8 o'clock in France. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the East Coast of America, which means that it is time for another Hub Games Team Talk. As ever, I am one of your cordial hosts, Michael. Over there is the inimitable Rory. Hello, Rory.
Hey, everybody.
Your face is not being obscured by the StreamYard logo again, which is good. And we have two fabulous and wonderful special guests this week as well. First up, from France's most noted leading journalistic extravaganza when it comes to games and all things ludological, from Tric Trac. See, I've got that little R in my French. Got it? See? That's what 4 years of GCSE French does for you. It is Mathilde. Mathilde, thank you so much for joining us. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for the invitation. Hi, everyone. Pleased to be here.
And also from the East Coast of the States, from the Cardboard Republic, one of my favorite review sites I'm not just saying that because he's a friend of mine, but because he does very, very good, in-depth written stuff, is Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's all good. So before we throw into today's topic, which is the wonderful world of reviews, which I know encompasses and sort of like covers a whole load of spots. Was like sort of like kick off with what have you been doing? What have you been playing, if indeed anything? So Mathilde, as you joined first,
Okay.
Right, just rocked up.
Sounds totally fair.
Yeah, what's been hitting your table recently, if anything?
So recently I've been playing a lot of The Crew, so the Spiel des Jahres winner, because I hadn't had the chance to try it before the actual ceremony. So I really didn't want to pass on this one, obviously. And I feel like I wanted not to like it, to feel different from other people, but I do like it a lot. So I can only recommend this. Then playing a lot of Nid d'Avenir as well, from Serge Léger. I don't know if you heard about it.
No, tell us about it.
And it's in Greux Games, so French publisher. I'm not sure if it's been released in other in non-French speaking countries, to be honest. But you basically got to recruit an army of dwarves to go and kill a dragon. So, pretty cool scenario. And those have been this is really my recent activity, I would say. I'm going to limit to those two.
That was pretty big at Cannes, wasn't it?
Nid d'Avenir, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. It was actually third on our hotness kind of list that we put up online. So yeah, this is the first thing that brought my attention to this one.
It was one of those games where I was looking longingly at it at Cannes, and no one could explain it to me because it was French only.
I can explain it to you, and the cards and everything are language neutral, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, the demo words were like, no, just keep moving.
Cool. Ryan, what about you? Anything thrilling hitting your table? So Ryan recently had, well, you didn't have it, but your partner had your first child, which I think you described as a black hole.
A tiny, horrible black hole of productivity was actually how I described it.
So are you getting to actually play much at the minute?
So on the one hand, we have now an 8-month-old. So that's definitely heavily curtailed our ability to play games in 2020. On the one hand. On the other hand, I'm from America, and things are an absolute nightmare right now.
I thought they were all going fine. The media seems to seem that everything is going okay over there.
Yeah, no. It's an absolute mess. I'm lucky in the sense, in quotes, in the sense that we're in the Northeast, so we already went through our nightmare scenario time period back in the spring, and things have quieted down for the most part around here, knock on wood, but for the majority of the country, no, it's still an absolute shit show. Unfortunately, even though things have kind of normalized to a point, we still have not resumed normal game nights and stuff like that. So regrettably, I have not been playing much of anything. I think the only thing of recent note was we played an escape room game, Aaron and I, the other night, which was like the first time we played a game in like a month.
Wow. So like Rory is forever trying to convince me of the merits of solo gaming. And I'm doing it. I've done it a bit, I've played Villages solo. I've done a few other bits and bobs. High Rise is still downstairs sort of mocking me, going, hey, you can spend 3 hours playing this solo game, can't you, Michael? It's just like, yeah, I could just play on the Xbox. But yeah, it's weird. Some of the stuff is odd times. Although I think we're kind of vaguely planning something, Rory, some sort of gaming stuff. Because we're allowed to meet up now.
Yes, and actually, my family are heading off for a night to visit grandparents. So we've actually got, apart from Gen Con, we'll have Thursday and Friday.
We are going to be working all of Gen Con. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to be working all of Gen Con.
Well, we can kind of juggle things, so we can do an early game or something.
Actually, yeah, day game would be cool.
I've actually dug out City of Kings after a conversation with Matt Thomason from the Friendly Board Gamer.
Mm-hmm.
We were just chatting about it, and I was like, yeah, I really need to take it down from the shelf and play it again. So it's actually just sitting right here. So I'll be playing hopefully when this call is finished. I'll squeeze in some time to play.
Rory forever has stuff set up behind. Actually, do you still have like Monster Apocalypse set up to
No,
the right as well?
I finally finished that and tidied it away.
Well, shamelessness. I've also been playing Adventure Mart and Prism Arena because we're running stuff for Gen Con. Of course, Virtual Gen Con is this weekend. So I've been refreshing my mind with La La and La La. And hey, they're both very good games, Rory. Just so you know.
I forgot, like the samples actually, sorry, this is a kind of a side thing. The production samples arrived in today, and it's just my excitement for the game just like burst forth again because it's kind of been
specifically
like
for Rory. You didn't mention which game.
Or Prism Arena, sorry, which had arrived. And the launch kit contents as well, which are kind of secret at the moment. But I was very excited to see how it all turned out.
Nice. Yeah, normally we have that sort of nice excitement thing of the production samples arrive in the office and everybody huddles around like the boxes as they open. It's just like, ooh, shiny, shiny. And even that has been stolen from us during these dark times. All right, so let's go on to our topic, I guess. Unless Rory, you got something else in your mind.
Yep. No, I'm gonna just move the conversation forward.
Cool.
As well.
All right, so like you said, this kind of came from you, Rory. This topic suggestion. Give us the rundown on it. Why did you want to go down this area?
Well, with Prism Arena coming out in kind of late September, early October, I was contacting reviewers about getting review copies out of the game for them to look at. And when we met yesterday, when we were having our coffee, it kind of got me thinking, because they'd been commenting on how kind of some things had been turned upside down because of the lack of cons, the kind of not being able to get together to play with people. So I thought it'd be interesting to actually turn the light kind of on reviewers and the process that they go through in terms of looking at a game. Because we complain about reviewers sometimes, some people miss things. Some are like, super attentive as well. So as designers and publishers, we have our kind of viewpoints. But I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to some kind of renowned reviewers and hear
established high quality content producers.
Yeah. And just kind of pull back the veil a little bit on the process of what's involved, the kind of highs and lows of the process, and even, some tips probably for publishers on how to get the most from reviewers as well and make the kind of relationship easier. Because I think before we came on live, we were talking about how it's kind of hard to keep up on all the new releases, in terms of what's coming out. So I think there's a synergistic relationship that isn't really being maximized, and we're as guilty of that as anyone. So I kind of hope to learn. This is me just wanting to learn what I should be doing right when it comes to reviewers.
And under the pretense of like doing a weekly show, we're just trying to educate ourselves in how to make the company better. Yeah. Well, Mathilde, let's kick off with you then. What sort of games do you review for Tric Trac? Is it literally like a do you specialize in a certain area, or is it literally like here's a tiny game, here's a big game?
Can I rewind that a little bit? Again, because we're talking to English-speaking audience mostly. What is Tric Trac?
That might be an idea.
Excellent question. So Tric Trac is a website that started in 2000. So it's 20th birthday. It's here. Anniversary, birthday, not sure. Anyways, yay. We are one of the leading French-speaking websites about board games, and we produce different types of content. So we have articles, so written content, live broadcast, and review videos, or basically any type of board game related videos, really depending on what we want to do, what we're paid for doing, and if we want to do it, yes or no. We have a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel, a Facebook page, like all of this stuff. But to begin with, we were only this website. And it's only French speaking. There is no English translation anywhere. So if you want to practice, have a look at it. But otherwise, maybe it's going to be a little difficult to get some valuable information from there if you don't speak French. And so then to answer your question, Michael, we are two main reviewers in Tric Trac. So my colleague, Guillaume, and myself. We don't really specialize in anything in the sense that we don't exclude anything from our review spectrum, so to say. We're gonna we try to play together in the office as much as we can. Obviously, right now the situation and the review process is slightly altered because of the entire situation, as we can't really meet daily in the office to play, review. So the main mentality or philosophy behind our process is that basically any publisher can send us anything they want. They send us a game, and if we don't like it, we don't talk about it. And if we do like it, then and if we find a nice angle, if we find something to if we find something interesting to say about this, if it's different for some reason from the production that is that is happening at the moment, or if it has something to it, then we will write about it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're only two people, and there are a lot of games coming in, so sometimes they are hard choices to make, but we have to make them because we have lives and everything. So
I mean, Mathilde, is it your day job as well? It's like it's your everything. You get paid for doing it.
Yes, absolutely. We are a company, so we are not independent. We are we are a company on its own, and this is also probably an influence to the way we are treating the games that are coming in, because we're not directly depending on this process to make money. Then next to it, we can also offer video production services to publishers, but this is very clear, and there is, maybe Ryan, we will talk about this a little bit later, but there is, at least in my mind, and I know in basically the entire team's mind, there is quite a difference between the written content production and the video content production, in the sense that I never wrote a sponsored written article, because that's our policy, in the sense that what we write is what we want to write, and then we make our living basically through the video medium. We can do this because we have those two media that we can communicate through. That's our main approach.
Cool. Ryan, what about you? What's the story behind the Cardboard Republic?
Yeah, so we're not quite as old as Tric Trac. We launched in 2012, so it's still, I guess, comparatively out there, still one of the older board gaming sites. We got into it early on. It was kind of a weird time to do it, but also fortuitous, I suppose, because we had started discussions about it in 2010, 2011. We felt that there really wasn't enough variety of content out there and content creation for board games, and there seemed to be an opening for more of that. And it seems completely quaint by today's standards, because of just how much things have grown in 8 years. It's mind-boggling. But we took two different approaches, kind of a dual-headed approach to what we wanted to do. The first was, we wanted to be a vehicle for smaller and indie publishers to get attention for their game. Maybe not necessarily for the tiniest of things or for print and play type of things, but smaller publishers, new publishers who are getting onto the scene. This coincided almost directly with the nascent of Kickstarter. So Kickstarter was a couple years old at that point, but really hadn't been taking off in terms of a go-to platform for board gaming yet. But we were starting to see signs that more and more people were starting to want to use this, and we thought that would be a good vehicle as well. So we, on the one hand, we wanted to give a specific attention to smaller publishers that maybe got overlooked by other reviewers that were focusing on the bigger publishers, the bigger names, and so forth. So that's always been kind of a passion of ours. And then our major hook, ours is a little bit different, is that we do kind of a categorical approach to board games when we look at them from a review perspective, at least, and focus not so much on whether or not I like it, but whether or not you'll like it. Because, and we use this analogy to movie reviews, right? So you might really like 18th century dramas, and another person's going to like Transformers, right? And so if you have a game that's aimed at that audience, but you don't like that genre, that's going to color your opinion. So if you're someone who, and to use like I guess board game comparison, something like, there's a huge audience for Apples to Apples or Munchkin, but there's also a huge audience for something like 1830 or Twilight Imperium. These games are completely different ends of the spectrum. Is one inherently a better game than the other? I would argue that it's more that they're aimed at different groups of people. And so if you don't like 4-hour math games or dice chuckers, you're not going to like these heavier games. And if you don't like role playing, you're not going to want to play D&D. So that was kind of how we approached it, and we ended up doing a bunch of research, and we ended up coming up with our what we call our archetype system. It's our 6 different player profiles, and we categorize games based on whether or not these particular player types are going to like the game or not. And we developed a little quiz for the sites. You can take it, and you can find out like what your categories are, at least the primary two, and kind of ran with that. And that's kind of how we wanted to do it. So one of the weird things, even though we're a written site, is not a single one of our reviews are written in the first person, because whether or not I like a game is sort of immaterial, and that's come with some pluses and minuses, some pros and cons over the years. We found in terms of an audience, but we like that approach and we stand by it.
Cool. I mean, I've got to say one thing that I do like about that approach is, clinical is the wrong word for it, but it's certainly because you have distanced yourself from it, from the actual sort of like it's not a I love this, I hate this, because you are putting yourself in like the shoes of the player archetypes. It makes I think for a good quality review. Not that like hey, I love this or I hate this reviews are bad either, but it just reads really, really well, and it helps that you're a good writer as well. So there you go. That's your one compliment for the show.
Oh, I'm glad I got it in early.
And that's it. Don't be looking for more.
I never with him.
Yeah. So I had a question, which was like, what's the process that you go through when looking at a game? Let's assume from the point of you receiving a game, because there's a whole different process of getting a game, a publisher getting a game to you and what's involved. But from the point where you've like picked out the game, what's the process you go through in terms of getting it to a reviewed game?
So the first thing we would do would be either we determine we have time to play this together, and so with the rest of the team, we're gonna play this in the office, or we don't have time, or there is a global pandemic that prevents us from doing so. So we're gonna first of all decide who's gonna try this, and it really depends on what game type is like, because we don't necessarily have the same player archetypes in our groups, in our friend circle. For instance, I don't know, I don't have kids, and I don't have kids around me, so if we receive kids games, then I can't try them because that wouldn't be relevant, obviously. So this is how we divide the work. Then we try the game at home 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then something maybe I wasn't clear. I think I probably misused a word for the previous question, but when I said I don't like it, it's not necessarily that I don't like it, but it's like I don't find any angle that is interesting to it. Like I'm gonna look for an angle that is not necessarily interesting to me, but also it could be interesting to other people. And then I need to include some, because we're so short on time, then on top of that I need to find, and this is I think where it differs from the technique you were describing, Ryan, is that I need to want to push this forward for some reason, like some spark that triggers me to want to write about this. And sometimes it's going to be because I like it personally. Sometimes it's going to be because I find a game, like for instance, recently I tried a game that I personally didn't like this much, but I played with someone who usually hates this kind of games and who loved this one. And this made me want to write about it because I saw what he liked in that game, which I didn't like. But it was such a weird twist for me to see that person suddenly actually enjoying an escape game that I was just like, okay, this can actually happen. I would never have thought so. So yeah, this was the hint. So yeah, there needs to be something specific. And then when this is written content, if we're talking about written reviews, I don't really have a technique, to be honest, and I don't really have a specific word count, or I don't know. I try to pour some content, and when I say content, obviously, but I mean not only fluff around it, but some actual information about the feelings and the sensations that you get from the game, and to basically explain the rules very briefly and just enough so that the reader has a structure, a skeleton kind of what the game might look like, and then talk about how the skeleton articulates and what it feels like to basically play with it and see where, up to what extent you can like push the rules, and how, I don't know if that's very clear, but this is really what I'm interested in. So yeah, this would be my 3-stage method, I guess.
What about you, Ryan? When things are more normal, as it were, I know you go sort of like pretty heavy into the games when you're writing about them. So I'll leave this to you, because I know a bit about your process because I've been part of it.
Right.
You know, I've been sat around your table at certain times when there's things that need to be checked out.
Yeah, for sure. It's not all that different. The idea, you know, once we decide on what we decide to pick and run with, and we get in a lot ourselves, and so we kind of have to pick and choose on which one we want to focus on at any given time. Once we've decided which one we want to do, and we might have a couple of different ones, so we might be juggling 3 or 4 different ones at any given time, because we want to take advantage of our play groups. I'm, as you alluded to earlier, Michael. I'm not much of a solo gamer either. If I actually have an abundance of free time to myself, I will do something other than gaming. And my wife and I generally don't play a ton of 2-player games either. So we're more group players. We like more of that 3 to 5, 3 to 6 range. But we do play 2-player versions for the coverage as well. But we'll take a game, we'll sit down, and our goal is to play it enough times that we feel that we have a good handle on what that game is presenting. And so we don't ascribe to this notion that some reviewers have, like you have to play X number of times or it doesn't count. I've played some games where I generally, I guess my thing is I need to play it at least twice. That's my personal rule. I've never played a game one time and felt comfortable reviewing it, because sometimes you play it wrong, or it could be the audience you're playing with, because you can color things one way or the other. So I like to do it a minimum of 2, but there's nothing beyond that. So there are some games that I've done reviews on where I've played it twice, but I, in those 2 times, really got a handle on what it's doing. And there's others that I've had to play it 6 or 7 times to really kind of figure out all the ins and outs of it. So I don't have like a hard limit to that. It's more about trying to kind of poke and prod around the different areas of the game in terms of, like I said, audience, who it's aimed at, and then different player sizes. So some games, they're like, oh, this game is 2 to 5, and it works great at 3 or 4, but the 2 players not that good. So we want to make sure we capture that. And so we run with that, and we also try to, because of our category idea, we try to have our play with the friends that we think will enjoy it the most. But sometimes sometimes we do intentionally try to play ones that we think that they'll like, and sometimes they're surprising. So sometimes we'll get those weird mismatches, like you were saying, where you think that they're going to hate this because, well, they hate worker placement games, but they really liked this one. And I too get really fascinated on why is it this one then that captures their interest, or vice versa. If they love area control games, but they absolutely hated what this one does, what is it about this one that really sets them off? So those are the type of things that I like to hone on as well. So that part is really not that different. And then we take as long as we need to take. We do not agree with any expected turnaround times. And for the most part, publishers are very chill with that. As the idea is like you get to it when you get to it. I've only run into like a couple of cases in the 8 years where a publisher actually had an issue of not getting it out on a certain time. But we don't do this as a business. This is a side thing for us. So we also have to coordinate other people who don't live with us, and that takes time and energy and effort. And you don't want to push your friends to a breaking point just to get an article out a week or 2 earlier than you would like.
Interesting.
Except for you.
Rory.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to frame it as a question. It was something that you had said, Mathilde, which kind of reminded me of reading reviews as a gamer when I'm looking at them. And I guess because I'm reading lots of different reviews and sometimes of the same game, a lot of the review is about the mechanics of the game. I'm not sure what the question is. I'm trying to think as a reviewer, how do you balance that element of the certain kind of functional information you feel like you need to communicate to the audience, and then there's, because the stuff I want is the opinion stuff. I don't really I don't need to know the mechanics, because that's covered in lots of different places. So how do you both kind of balance that need to lay the groundwork for the game?
This is actually the first, the place where it came from, that I realized that in most places you can read about the mechanics, you can learn them easily. And I wanted to go a little bit behind that, and at least in certain articles, in part of them. And specifically what I'm fascinated by is the mechanics. Do you know those pop-up books when you open them and it goes like whoosh? Mm-hmm. Some games that feel like this, like the rules are very simple, really not complicated, but it opens the way to a world of complexity and mechanics and tactics and reasonings. And so basically what I try to do is to identify the core arcs, or the cornerstones that create this skeleton that I was talking about earlier, and then just give those. And then I'm not going to spend some time explaining that you start with 3 coins, and then you have 4 actions, but one of them is optional per turn, It's like basically you have money and you have actions and you can do this or this or that. Mm-hmm. And if with this, I can convey the idea and the world, or at least part of the world of possibility that is developed within the game and that you experience playing this game, then I think this is the balance that I'm trying to reach. Is basically giving the keys to understand the things that I'm talking about later on in the article.
Mm-hmm. Brian, do you think it's possible to write a review without any mechanical aspects? Without any of those descriptive bits?
Yes, you can. There are some reviewers out there who just omit the rules entirely. They say you want to, we are going into this assuming you already know how to play. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be looking this up. So we're going to skip the rules and we're just going to dive into the game. And so there are some people who are fine with that because they're putting the onus on the reader or the viewer to already be informed of what they're trying to do. And that's a perfectly fine approach. We had some folks on our end actually over the years who kind of even pushed for that on our end internally. And I always push back on that. Now, we have set kind of an arbitrary but consistent thing of we will explain the rules, but it'll never take up more than around 25% of the article. Mm-hmm. So that way you don't get inundated. Because there are some people that, when you really stretch the whole thing out and you look at in the end, it's 85% is just walking you through the game. And then there's like a paragraph at the end saying why they did or didn't like it. But one of the beauties of reviewing is you can take it in whatever direction you want, whatever you as the author, the creator want to discuss. You don't have to follow any sort of rigid formula or any sort of template. Is really what you want to focus on. I mean, I always think of the, not to knock anyone in particular, but like this kind of, you see this with a lot of video folks. They all have this traditional, not all, but a lot of them follow the same traditional approach of, okay, this is the game. We're going to now explain the rules. We may or may not show a walkthrough on some turns. And then at the very end, I will talk about my review. And written people do the same thing. So you don't have to go that approach. I like the idea of focusing on, and this is what I generally do, what is the thing that the game wants? What is it expressing? So what is the main thing that you are going to go into this game and kind of sets, not to say sets it apart, but sets the interest level. So sometimes if you go into a game, that is the mechanics. There are some games that the mechanics are really innovative and clever and they tie into to the theme really well, and you want to explore that. So run with the review about talking about how it's doing that. And if you do get into the weeds on mechanics, then that's okay if it's to a point. Mm-hmm. But there are other times where the mechanics are immaterial and it's all about the experience that the game is trying to present to you or the theme that it's trying to convey. Maybe there's some sort of underlying premise or an emotion that's trying to evoke. Whatever the game is trying to accentuate, run with that. Because there's plenty of thematic games that if you really want to just focus on mechanics, it's like, all right, well, move to this spot, roll a die, read a card. I just described like 80% of Fantasy Flight games. There you go. But but that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means the mechanics aren't the focus.
Mm-hmm. That's Ryan off the Asmodee list.
Yeah. It's interesting hearing you say that, Ryan. Michael, you've heard me say this so many times. It's like, why should this game exist? That's like the foundation of our philosophy at Hub Games. There has to be an argument for why this game should exist in the world. And I think that's what I'm always looking for in a review. I want someone to tell me, why should this game exist? What's the thing that makes it special? And if it doesn't meet that criteria, then I just move on to find something else. And that's
it's quite interesting that both Mathilde and Ryan, they do that, they both seek that what makes this game special, but you both do it in very different ways. So Mathilde, yours is like, trying to find that unique selling point of the game, and Ryan, yours is the sort of like the just trying to find that's the space it works within, I guess.
It's an emergent thing. It's what makes the game stand out. And I will couch that by saying that at the same time, I usually caution against doing too heavy of a comparison to other titles. Some reviewers are fine with that. Some aren't. Some will say, "Oh, well, I like this, but it's not as good as," or "I like this, but I still prefer this better," or "It's a replacement for X." I don't like going into that, at least from a review standpoint. I'm fine to talk about that in person or on social media, and I'll be outspoken on that from an informal perspective. But I don't think it does do justice to the game to go, oh, well, this worker placement isn't as good as this other worker placement game. I just feel like focus on the game itself, but it's also impossible to a degree to do that. I understand, because everyone's opinion is going to be informed by the information that they have. So if you've never played another one, then Lords of Waterdeep is the best one ever. But if you've played 100 different worker placements, then you're going to have a bit of a more critical eye. And that cuts both ways. So I just be mindful of that as well.
So I have another question that I'm trying to figure out how to formulate, because it comes
out into the universe, Rory. We'll work it out.
This is how you're literally see how my brain works. I start talking and the thing finally comes together. So you're talking about kind of reviewing and how many times you play the game, and as a publisher, again, myself and Michael and the team have talked about this. There's a permanence to a review. When it's out there, it exists and it's seen as kind of the truth. And it's been like, I know I found it frustrating on occasion where people have gotten things like blatantly wrong in the game, like either the rules or like when we did Holding On, there was a reviewer who like talked about the Civil War in Northern Ireland and how they'd built a wall. It was just like, oh my God, like you could have just like checked Wikipedia and just, seen anything. But, and this was like a podcast. And so, but it's the stuff where and I think particularly podcasts are guilty of it and video where they just kind of like throw something out and don't go back and edit that afterwards or check it. So I'm going to turn this around and go, has there ever been an occasion where something like that has happened to you, where you've accidentally put something out there that was kind of inaccurate, and how you dealt with it?
Mathilde is perfect and has never, ever
made
any mistakes ever.
No, obviously.
There's that legal case.
So first thing is, it's only been a year that I'm writing reviews, so I have plenty of time to get something wrong at some point later on. This is probably going to happen. But up until now, I don't think I have. And I mean, I'm also, we're actually, I don't see this happening in a written article. This might possibly happen during a live broadcast, but this would happen only during the broadcast. And then if we put this online later on, I would definitely like have this little alarm thing in my head that goes like, oh, you say this one thing that you're not entirely sure about. So go and check this. And then if I realize this is actually wrong, we would cut it off right away. And if it's something that I don't notice, I don't know. I mean, it never came back to my ears, I guess. But I can assure you, I was not the person that mentioned the wall in the review of, Holding On. It wasn't me.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. I agree with you, Rory, that there are definitely occasions where if someone is doing a review, that there is a tendency to sometimes just throw it out there and it's good enough. There's not that imperative to go back. It's one thing if you're just having a discussion, like the podcast, a lot of times it's discussions. But if you're going to do a formalized review in a podcast or on a video, you have just like writing, you have the capability of fixing those things in post. If you realize, oh, I completely missed this rule, then you know what? You don't put it out the day you want to put it out. You go, you fix it. You may have to re-record a section and you fix it. I think it's disingenuous and possibly even just a little lazy to just throw it out there anyway, because you want to stick to a release schedule. But if you put out something that is blatantly wrong and people catch that, they are going to hammer that. You're going to get people who are reading it or watching it who are going to say, you clearly, like, this just looks bad, that you didn't take the time to have it right and to put it out. Sometimes mistakes do happen, sure, but you take it down, you correct it, you put it back up later. But yeah, there's definitely, I've seen it occasionally, and I agree, it does seem to happen more in video than pretty much any other medium. And I think I think part of that is because there's so much competition in the video sector. To get your review out there, you want to be one of the first, because you want to get those clicks, you want to get the attention, you want to be on the forefront of people watching your stuff, because your video is incredibly competitive. People only have so much time in the day. They can only watch so many videos. They're not going to watch 20 different videos of the same game. So you want to be one of those that people are going to, and you want to get yours out there first. And sometimes people will cut corners in order to get that out there. Writers, for the most part, we don't care as much on the whole. I'm generalizing, but it's kind of true. There's not a lot of writers that insist on being at, like, we have to have this out like the week that the game comes out. And if there is a mistake, it is also kind of a lot easier to go back and fix it, because you can just go in and make an edit. You put it in the editor line if there's something substantial that needs to be changed, to let the viewers know that something has been edited. But if it's a minor thing, then you can just go in and change the article and update it. So there's an advantage there. But no, generally, you just, I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine. I just take the time to actually, like, do it, make sure you're doing it right. I'm usually the rule guy in my gaming groups anyway, so I have to read the rules, and then usually after we play it one time, I then go back and reread the rules to make sure we did or didn't screw something up. Like every single game. Could be a really simple party game, could be a really lengthy game. I want to make sure I'm not screwing it up, because that's just also the competitive side of me of, like, I didn't want to win or lose because we did something wrong.
No, I think Ryan. Sorry, Mathilde, you go on.
I do have the feeling that if someone would do this repeatedly, like, you go to them and you're like, hey, this one thing you didn't get, and then of course you didn't have a good time because you did whatever wrong, not according to the rules, and the person would be like, too late. Then you probably wouldn't send them a game anymore. Like, you wouldn't send them copies of your new.
You'd like to think that's how
we would, but there's definitely some that still just keep sending him stuff.
And also, I mean, this is way beyond the reputation or the style or anything. This is just, I mean, lying up to a certain extent. So, I mean, at some point they would have the reputation, because the board games community is also not this huge, especially between publishers and the media and the reviewers. So I don't know, maybe there are some counter examples that I'm not aware of, but I feel like this wouldn't be a very rewarding strategy for someone who wants to keep commenting on board games.
We'll talk offline afterwards, Mathilde. Yeah, but there are certainly people out there who have, let's say, they have an audience, and they continue to have an audience, but let's say their attention to detail may not be 100%. All right. Now, Ryan, I realize it's coming up to time that you have to bail, unfortunately. Because you have a press event to do, what with Gen Con being around the corner. So before you run away, how can people find you and contact you and talk about your fine reviews?
Well, we are kind of on the normal spectrum of accessibility in that regard. The website is cardboardrepublic.com. We're on Twitter at Cardboard News. Facebook is Cardboard Republic, Instagram, Cardboard Republic. We were doing some video stuff up until about a year ago. Same thing, same name. but that usually the easiest way to get to me is on Twitter. But we take just about any form of social media you can think of. So pretty easy to find us these days.
Cool.
Will you stick that into the comments, Michael, so that people
Yes.
can find it afterwards?
I shall do. So it's twitter.com/cardboardnews. Done. Boom. Sorted. All right, Ryan, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And I will now kick you out unceremoniously, and I'll speak to you over the Gen Con weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
Good chatting with y'all.
Bye, Rain.
Right. All eyes are on you now, Mathilde.
Yay! Hello, eyes.
Coolio. All right, so what Ryan was saying there was interesting. There is, I don't know, maybe it's quite a human tendency of not wanting to admit your mistakes, I guess. Like if you do screw something up, a lot of people don't like saying, yeah, my bad. Especially if they're sort of like they're just rolling through, just trying to create content upon content upon content.
Is it a case of, I think you made a good point. There's the different mediums, and so like text-based medium is easier to kind of edit, go back in and edit.
Mm-hmm.
But audio and video is harder. I think, and especially with video of just having to reset up and do it. I know people do Klingon, subtitles as they call them.
Oh, that's Rado's thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like the doobly-doo that some people might know what I'm talking about. There's like terms that have become common parlance when it comes to talking about kind of video. And I think Klingon subtitles has become one of them, where you basically add a correction into the video afterwards as a subtitle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see.
Yeah,
I think maybe this has also something to do with the fact that most of this information is carried through social networks, and social networks do tend to have some kind of magnifying glass effect on, like, Michael, you were saying that people don't really like saying that they were wrong. This is true in real life. This is even more true on any social network. And if you have some kind of community or that is built on basically the image, I mean, I've no idea of I'm not thinking of anyone in particular at all, but like just generally speaking, on a community that is built on the image of someone, and the person has to somehow at some point do their mea culpa and say, I was wrong about this point or that point, and I have to make an edit of that video. Maybe they fear they would lose some part of the trust of their community. I don't know.
It's one of the things I think you actually gain it, because it's acknowledged. But I think it is one of those things where, 2012, I think, was like that big, for me, like an upsurge in gaming. And so many more people were coming to the world of kind of reviewing. And I think there really is something to be said of the standard that some reviewers try to reach. Hopefully it'll bring more people up, but there's definitely quite a wide range in quality and attention. And it's like, when you find someone who has a kind of unique voice, it's like, okay, I'm going to like cling on to that person and stay in contact with them, because for good or bad, they'll write a quality review. And that's, for me, the most important thing. It's like that they took the time to look at the game, try to find the angle on it, and communicate that to another audience. I think as a publisher, that's the most we can hope for. Yes, it'd be great if you got a glowing review, but I think the reviews that matter most to me are when people get what you're doing. And I remember, just say a quick story, Scott Nicholson, who was like reviewing games long ago,
the granddaddy of the
granddaddy, yeah. he told me he came out of retirement, of like game review retirement, to review kind of a game activity we had created, myself and Anita, called the Extraordinaires Design Studio. And he said it just had such an impact on him. He came out of retirement, to kind of review this game. And I cried. I did. I teared up, because it was like, you get why we made this. He totally understood it. And, that's we don't just make entertainment. There's usually a reason behind it, and the game has been a critical, I think, success, not necessarily financial, but the impact it's had on the world is mirrored by what he said about it. And I think, I don't know how you feel, Michael, that thing of when someone reviews and okay, you got it. Yes, we might have not quite hit the nail on the head, but you understood what we were trying to get, and you've communicated that to a wider audience. That, for me, is like the greatest gift from a reviewer.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a glowing 5-star, 10 out of 10 review any day of the week, which is fantastic. I'll take an honest review any day of the week as well. But yeah, if somebody does sort of like manage to dig in and sort of like, scratch the surface, and maybe it's because they know who we are, or they've spoken to us previously, or they've just managed to key directly into the vibe that we were trying to, concoct when making the game. But yeah, when somebody does put something up, whether it's a video or a written piece or a podcast piece, and like you said, they get it, they understand it. It's just sort of like, all right, maybe I'm not so bad at this game making job after all. So
I don't know if I have time to add something, or maybe we're running a bit short.
Loads of time.
Okay. I recently I had this triad of a Cowboy Bebop, which is an anime that I know nothing about, and I could tell that the two authors, Florian Siriex and Johan Muzo, I could tell they were passionate about it, and you could tell from playing the game that they loved it, and they tried to really represent within the mechanisms of the game the characters and the way the characters behaved between them, and the entire atmosphere of the show. And it really, really struck me, and I was then, of course, really curious. So I really enjoyed the game because of that reason, just because feeling the passion through the game is really awesome. And then afterwards, it made me watch the anime, which I did like very much as well.
Because it's an amazing anime. So.
it's actually really, really good. But I had no idea of that when first playing the game. So I think this is within the same kind of feel. Like, it doesn't have necessarily, I don't know. I mean, the authors do know. I have no idea what their message or their intention was, but I could tell that there was a story of passion behind this. And it wasn't just, a license, let's create some weird and not really interesting mechanisms to put it on there. It was, they really wanted to put it forward, and that was just a pleasure observing that.
Well, maybe that was just, the message for them for that game was, we really, really love Cowboy Bebop, and we want other people to sort of feel that passion as well. That's actually really interesting that you sort of that you say that, because, like I said, Cowboy Bebop is a fantastic anime. It's one of my favorites, from the animation to the music to the storyline. So it's just all great. And now I want to play that game. So,
weird circle.
Yeah, if it's that evocative, I need to go and find a copy of it. It sounds really, really cool.
So I'm gonna try actually and keep us on time, but the conversation has become so interesting that we kind of want to keep going. I'm curious then, I'd love to ask more about the kind of the French, your audience, and maybe ask that just quickly before I do the next thing. What's the size of your kind of audience in France, and what does it span, just so people know?
It's honestly hard to tell, because we have several millions people. I mean, somewhere, I don't have the exact number top of my mind right now, but I'd say around maybe 5 million people a year on the website. So for a country that is basically 66 million people. But it's hard to tell whether some people are coming again or not, or blah, or blah, or blah. So, but this is, kind of a rule of thumb works. I mean, an approximation would be that. And then we have also a quite an active Instagram account with more and more people. Or Twitter is kind of But Facebook, our Facebook page is also really active. Maybe we're on there right now, actually. I'm not sure if we've been shared or not, but hi, if yes. So it's quite, and then of course there are so many people that are players, that are gamers in France that don't come to Tric Trac. So if your question is really about the span and the number of people who do play in France, I'd say it's something like really large. Probably I don't know. I mean, most people, without making any difference. Yeah, I read a study about this recently. I think the number is somewhere, it's around 70% of people in France who have played a game at least once in their lives. So included basically any type of board games. And I think it's only board games because there is a really strong culture of card playing games. You know, you're probably not going to know them, but the tarot, belote, rami, canasta, those are all different card games that you play with basic, well, not tarot, but anyway, with 52 cards games, and there is a strong culture. I think, by the way, this is also the reason why the crew works so well in France, is because there is such a strong culture of getting together, sitting around a table. This is going to be very cliche, but this is also kind of true. Having a glass of wine and playing cards. Like, we do this a lot in the afternoons, on holiday, whenever going camping. The card playing games is very strong. And then now I've been noticing, I actually made a post about this yesterday, that the same group of friends that I'm on holiday every year, 2 years ago, they were still looking at me like an alien when talking about board games. Like, really, you're actually getting into rooms and like pushing coins and cardboard on cardboard. That doesn't make any kind of sense. And I think it's not only my influence, and that's the good thing of it, is that it's not only my influence. So great. They got more and more familiar with this, and now we're actually playing Terraforming Mars tonight. Wow. So, you know, that's kind of a achievement unlocked.
So
the societal aspect of it is, you know, people like societally, people becoming more aware of gaming as an acceptable hobby, I guess.
It's pretty much it. And to be honest, I have no idea how the reputation of board gaming is in other countries, but in France, it really has this kind of old-fashioned ring to it for still many people. Many people think of Monopoly, of Cluedo, of Risk, and they don't, like, still today, there's some people who do discover, like, oh, wow, the Catan, amazing, Catan, so modern. And I mean, of course, for me as a reviewer, like a professional of the sector, I'm like, yeah, 25 years, like, kind of modern, but you know. But still, it's really a pleasure to notice, exactly as you were saying, Michael, that things are getting and also actually the lockdown had a pretty huge impact on the board games acceptancy, or like how they're seen, how they're accepted, how many people realize that, hey, it's actually kind of cool to spend some time together doing something together, like something physical, in a sense, moving things around, and not just calling or having a drink, but actually doing and building something. I think this is quite recent.
I will have to say, because you like quoted a number or a statistic, we're going to have to fact check that and edit the video now. Thanks a bunch.
I did.
That's all right. It's my job. I'll get it sorted.
Damn. What was the number that I said that was wrong?
No, I'm joking, because we were talking about reviewers who just say things and then don't check what they're saying.
Oh god. I was like, you did check this, like, in between. No, I'm fair. Like, this is kind of a you know.
Yeah. Don't scare the guests.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just joking with you.
That's fine. I'm not scared.
So, just maybe to wrap up, for publishers who have games, that they maybe want to, get some visibility in France, what's the best way for them to work with you? Does there need to be a French language version available, or how should they, approach talking to you and other French reviewers?
Well, actually, Rory, I think you could actually widen that question out a bit to sort of like how can games companies help reviewers, basically? How can we make reviewers' lives easier?
All right. So I have a first answer to that question that is quite simple, is be clear about the release dates. This is the information that is the hardest to get, honestly. Whenever you go to, so first, there is not really a united source of information. So it's really hard to pick up information a little bit here, a little bit there. Newsletters they aren't calibrated the same, obviously. They're also not very regular. So it's really hard to like wrap your head around, okay, this is coming next week, and then this is coming next week. And this takes a lot of time. Like we spend basically, I'd say between 1 and 3 hours a week just to know, like to make sure we get a complete list of what's being released this week.
And to put that in context, how does it? Because I've a different angle on it as a publisher working with distributors, but to give it context, how does it help you to know? I have an idea of what it is, but how does it help you to know what the release date is? Is it helping you with planning the timing of your reviews, or like scheduling?
Exactly. It's about the scheduling, about saying, okay, this one's coming up in 2 months. So we received the box right now, but there is no emergency in playing it. Like we can wait for another month and prioritize this one that is coming up next month. Or the other way around can work as well. Like, hey, we have this super awesome exclusivity about this one game that is coming up only 2 months in 2 months. So let's write about this right now. So this will allow us to adapt basically your publication's schedule to what's going on. And then this will also, we can then have everything in some kind of calendar, whatever. And this way we can make sure that we don't miss anything, basically. We don't miss any information. We don't miss any new release that maybe we would have liked, and we couldn't, for some reason, the publisher didn't send the box or anything. And this way we can basically grab the information on the way. So there is this game that is released on the 22nd of September, and it's a worker placements game that happens in space. Okay, got most of the information. I'm probably gonna have a playtest on the second week of August or something. So yeah, this is a good way to help us. And then how to approach. So then maybe a little bit more from the French speaking point of view. I'm kind of fluent in English, kind of. I hope I can say that on an English speaking stream, and no one's going to laugh at me.
English is spectacularly better than our French.
That's fair enough. That's fine with me. So I don't need a French written version or anything. Also works with German, by the way. If you don't have games translated into any other language than German, it's fine. I can have them. And
putting us to shame.
What?
You're putting us to shame. No. Oh, I'm finding English and French and German. It's just
and
like
German. I speak a little bit of Spanish as well, but my Spanish isn't good enough. Like English translation is better. Sorry. Yeah, so that's all right. And then we're actually thinking of creating subtitled videos in English or German or other languages, like multilingual, basically subtitles, so that anyone could access our content. So especially because we're going to be partners to the Spiel Digital. So we're basically going to think about it over the next 2 weeks, how we can include this multilingual factor within our video production. For the written content, it's pretty obvious how you translate an article. For the video, it's not like, do we make an English version and a French version? Do we make subtitles? Do we just not do this at all and focus on the French-speaking audience? I don't know any of this yet. We still have to talk about it, but this is definitely in our process of thinking. The last thing is that separately from the language reflection, there is also the fact that sometimes some titles are not published in France yet, and they will be localized within the next 6 months or 1 year. And then we definitely have a huge interest of like knowing a little bit of what's going on within the rest of the world. Of course, when coming from countries like the States or Germany, this is super interesting to us because there are quite high chances that those games are going to end up at some point in France, and it's pretty cool for us if we can have a look at them early on, and also if we have a chance to push them forward. I don't know, maybe some editors, like French editors, can be like, oh, sounds cool. Yeah, I'm gonna call those guys from the other side of the ocean and have a talk with them.
I think that's where I think there's a great opportunity for kind of working together. Like, one, I would love to see your videos subtitled, because it's a bit of a stereotype, but I love the expressiveness of people on the videos. You know, it just makes it far more engaging to watch. Because I'm usually watching them going, I wish I knew what was being said. So that would be great. And I think there is that element. You know, we've tried to leverage it in the past where we've talked to an editor and a publisher or distributor, and they're like, yeah, I don't know about this game. And I'll start sending out review copies to people there, because if they're watching and if they see that, Tric Trac gives a game a positive review, then it does help swing them towards picking it up, because they're trying to mitigate risk.
Obviously, I can imagine.
So that's, I think there's a lot of benefit of working together in that way.
Good stuff.
Cool.
Is that it then? Are we going to wrap up there? It's coming up on 8:10, so that's all good. Before we do, though, we do have a question from Jos. Unsurprising. Mathilde, who designed the logo? I'm assuming the Tric Trac one. And how did it get that lovely face?
So the logo was designed from Dr. Mops. Hi, Dr. Mops. How are you doing? Who's a member of our team, who's been there, I think, almost since the beginning. Like, he's been there a while. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe a little bit after 2000, but almost the beginning. And the logo comes from an axolotl. Yeah, axolotl. Yeah. It's already hard enough to say in French.
It's hard to say in English as well.
Yeah.
And I think if I got the story right, he had some at home, and he just really liked, like, they kind of always have this smiley face, and they always look like nice, and like they want your good. Like, they definitely want what's good for you. If you have a look at axolotl on Google image, you're definitely gonna feel better about yourself, and yay. This is where this logo comes from. So good to know that you like it. Actually, duly noted.
And before we do wrap up, if folks want to check out Tric Trac for themselves, please shill your product.
Your wares.
Shill your wares.
Shill your wares. Thank you for this awesome expression. All right. So first of all, of course, the website. So trictrac.net. And this is our home base. Then we have a Facebook page, which is Tric Trac, as in my pseudo that you can see like here.
Yep.
Then Instagram, Tric Trac, and then Twitter, that is slightly less active, Tric Trac Crew, sorry. And I think pretty much that's of course, and then Twitch, Tric Trac TV, all together and small letters. So mostly for the community is Facebook, for the pretty things we do is Instagram, and for the content we write is the website, and for the videos we shoot is YouTube. You got it all.
everything you
Excellent.
want and more. Well, Mathilde, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining us and giving us a bit of an insight into the wonderful world of reviews and reviewing. Meanwhile, for us, I'm assuming you're going to be sort of like hanging around for Gen Con weekend as well, doing some of the Gen Con online things. Because we are going to be there. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were talking to me or to Rory. We actually did shoot some videos already, so you might see my face around.
Wow.
So maybe see you there.
Cool. So yeah, we're going to be running events all over the weekend. We are doing demo plays of Adventure Mart and of Prisma Arena as well. So Adventure Mart, of course, in stores now. Prisma Arena coming out late September, early October. A lot of them are already sold out. A lot of them are already full. But if you go to the Gen Con events finder over at gencon.com and search for Hub Games, you can see what slots are open and potentially sign up as well. Of course, we are in Northern Ireland, and the convention officially takes place in the middle of America. So we're not going to be running events until 3 o'clock in the morning because we need sleep and stuff like that. But there's plenty of stuff for folks to get involved on. Of course, we'll be hanging around in the Gen Con Discord all over the weekend as well. And if you are a reviewer or a writer or any other media person, do get in touch with us. You can grab us on the Discord, or you can send a message to media@wearehubgames.com as well. But for now, thank you very much, everybody, for checking us out. Thank you to Rory for your time, Mathilde as well. And we will now wave until the stream finishes. Have a lovely week, everybody. Goodbye.
See you next week.
Bye.
Waving on.
Okay, I have to wave with this hand because I actually have to click the end broadcast button over here.
Your smile.
Bye.